to tell me in prison in Florida you can't get you no pen pals? Man, y'all doing some hard time down there in Florida. Hey Siri, take a note.
What do you want it to say?
Remind me to never get locked up in the state of Florida.
Okay, I created a note. Remind me to never get locked up in the state of Florida.
Good evening and welcome to After Prison Show News. I'm totally kidding, but we are going to go with a little more professional feel for this video. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and I felt like I needed to dress up somewhat like a lawyer or more professional for this video. I'm not really sure if I nailed the lawyer aspect or if I look more like a tablecloth. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be performing here all night to that one person who did last. Thank you. But in this video, I want to talk to you guys about a really serious topic. This is definitely in the wheelhouse of some prison news. And in fact, what this video is about a prison news publication, newsletter, or newspaper, and most likely the largest prison publication that there is, a publication by the name of Prison Legal News, which is actually being banned from prisons in the state of Florida. And you know, real quick, that's just something absolutely crazy to think about. I mean, it's a prison publication called Prison Legal News. You might imagine that if there was one publication that was not going to get banned, it might be one with a name like Prison Legal News. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with this publication, and I'm sure there's quite a few of you who are not. In fact, there might even be some of you out there who never even knew that there was such a thing as a prison publication. But here's something that you might find kind of surprising. There are certain prisons, in fact, the very last prison that I served time at had something similar to this as well. But there are certain prisons that actually have prison newsletters that are actually created, printed inside of a prison, and then passed out to the prison population. And these publications are a way for prisoners to be able to express themselves, whether through stories, maybe news events taking place across the prison. You know, sometimes we talk about the prison grapevine where a lot of gossip is spread. Well, a perfect example where something like that could take place is most certainly inside of a prison newsletter. But prisoners are able to put artwork inside of these newsletters, hear about upcoming events. Maybe something like special visitation is taking place on certain holidays. These newsletters are a way for prisoners to find out about that. Maybe there's something special that's going to be served inside of the chow hall. Hey, they have a neutral loaf on Thursday. Hey, who ain't eating that neutral loaf? Ain't none of y'all eating that neutral loaf? What is neutral loaf anyway? And you know, real quick, just to throw this in here, like I had mentioned at the very last prison where I served time at, they had a newsletter there as well. And I was actually something of a featured contributor to that newsletter because I used to create prison cartoons for it. And every month I would see the newsletter come out, and hey, there's old Joe's cartoon right there, boy. You're doing major things up inside of the prison. But again, for those of you who may not be familiar with Prison Legal News, this is actually like a worldwide prison newsletter. And even more interesting than that, this was actually created by two guys who were serving time when they first created this publication. Paul Wright started the magazine from inside a maximum security prison in Washington State with another inmate, Ed Mead. Together they had $300, which was enough to pay for 6 issues. And if enough subscriptions and donations came in, they thought they could afford to keep publishing. Well, since then, Prison Legal News has grown into a 72-page, authoritative, and unmatchable resource for inmates seeking legal advice for their complaints ranging from medical neglect, beatings, and excessive use of force to abuse of solitary confinement and sexual assault behind bars. And just like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a very serious story because this publication, Prison Legal News, is a very serious publication. In fact, in some cases, this may be the only source of prison news that guys are able to get while serving time. And it's with that that makes it just that much more crazy that an appeals court actually upheld a decision to ban this publication from all prisons in the state of Florida. Now, you know, you might be thinking a major reason why they would uphold this decision to ban this publication is because of what I had just mentioned, giving prisoners essentially a voice to voice their complaints about all sorts of crazy things that are taking place inside of the prison. Though that might actually be the likely reason why this decision was upheld. The reason that the judge gave was because inside this publication there are advertisers for all sorts of prisoner-related services. Whether it's pen pal services, correspondence services. Wait a minute, pen pal and correspondent, that's the same thing. Whether it's for books or magazine services, legal, attorney ads, things like that. And the judge would go on to say that some of these ads were for things that were prohibited inside of the prisons in Florida. Such things as three-way calling, which, if you get caught making a three-way call, meaning I'm going to call you and then I'm going to need you to click over, dial a number, and when they pick up, I'm going to need you to click back over so I can talk to whoever it is that I'm trying to talk to because they don't have money on their phone or maybe they don't have a prisoner account set up so a prisoner can call to them. And if you get caught making one of these three-way calls, I mean, they can terminate your phone calls for months, maybe even longer than that, maybe even indefinitely if they really wanted to. I mean, I don't know why it's such a big deal to not allow three-way calling. I mean, all of that phone call is going to be monitored and recorded, but I can tell you why they don't allow it. It's because that third party that you're calling, they ain't paying to have you call them. So that's basically like you getting two calls for the price of one. In prison, they ain't going for that. 2-for-1 deals in prison? Ain't nobody got time for that. Well, the prisons ain't got time for that. All the prisoners in the world, though, they definitely trying to make them three-way calls. But the judge said that this magazine had ads for things that were prohibited, like those three-way calls, and also pen pal services. When did getting a pen pal become something that you weren't able to do? Because throughout all the time that I done served, we was getting all the pen pals in the world. Dudes was like kingpins of the pen pal. You mean to tell me in prison in Florida you can't get you no pen pals? Man, y'all doing some hard time down there in Florida. And you can't get prison legal news neither? Hey Siri, take a note.
What do you want it to say?
Remind me to never get locked up in the state of Florida.
Okay, I created a note. Remind me to never get locked up in the state of Florida.
Good girl. You're a good girl for doing that. Something else allegedly the Prison Legal News advertises for is for selling postage stamps for cash. Now, I'm not sure if this is something that's illegal and you're not allowed to do this. I'm pretty sure it's probably illegal. But this is a major hustle the guys definitely have while serving time because, you know, one thing the guys want to acquire and get a lot of, well, they used to. Now they're switching over to email, so you can't do this anymore. But having boatloads of stamps, hundreds of dollars in stamps, maybe even thousands of dollars, you're talking about having a lot of prison currency in a relatively small volume or mass. So you can have hundreds or thousands of dollars in stamps, and that's going to be something that's pretty easy to hide. But guys will certainly mass collect these stamps because it's common prison knowledge that you can take them stamps, go home, and maybe even sell them back to the post office. If you can do that, then I'm pretty sure that's not illegal. Hey, I've got 1,000 stamps right here. I'd like to turn these in for $500. Oh, absolutely. You said 1,000 stamps for $500. Freak, put your hands behind your back. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. That is a federal offense. Again, I'm not really sure if that's legal or not. Now, the judge in this case would continue on trying to expound upon his thinking of why Prison Legal News needed to be banned in the state of Florida. And he did this by invoking a 19th century writer, Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde? Oh, you talking about Oscar? I have no idea who that is. But this judge would actually go on to quote this Oscar Wilde saying, from time to time, we have to follow the advice of Oscar Wilde in gotten rid of temptation by yielding to it. I honestly have no idea what that means at all. I'm guessing that he's saying the only way that we can stop temptation is by yielding to it. Now, I'm studying for my driver's test, and I know that yield means to slow down and come to a stop if necessary. So actually, that does make a little more sense. However, this news story would also add a little footnote saying, editor's note, Irish poet and playwright Oscar Wilde was imprisoned in 1895 on a charge of gross indecency with men. You know, I'm wondering if old Oscar Wilde had gotten rid of temptation by yielding to it himself. Now, you know, this judge would also go on to say that inmates have time, talent, and a tendency to use their phone, pen pals, and correspondence privileges to conduct criminal activity, thwarting efforts to protect inmates and the public. You know, it is safe to say that this judge believes everybody locked up in prison is an absolute horrible, disgusting, despicable person, and they is absolutely a monster. You know, people can change, Judge. People can change. Just ask Oscar Wilde. Actually, I'm not really too sure if he changed or not. You know, I guess the main premise for this story is the fact that Florida is the first state to actually completely ban this publication. But you know what's really crazy to me reading that, like hearing that Florida was the first state to ban this? There is no doubt in my mind, I remember this vividly, but I've been to at least 1, at least two prisons where I can remember right there on this bulletin board in the prison where it talked about banned publications. And this Prison Legal News was one of those things. So though it might not be banned statewide here in the state of Virginia, I've certainly been to some prisons where they're not allowing that publication, and for whatever reason. Whether it's because they don't want to give the prison population a voice to speak about their concerns, whether it's safety, whether it's all sorts of crazy stuff that may be taking place in the prison, or maybe it's more so like Oscar Wilde and this judge said, talking about three-way calls, pen pal services, and what was the other thing? And this whole cash for stamps business. And the main reason they brought up this whole cash for stamps thing was they were like, well, damn, if prisoners can collect stamps and then turn that into cash, they could use that money to bribe guards and maybe get the pack in, maybe get the contraband brought into the prison. But I can assure you, whether or not they have access to three-way calls, pen pal services, or cash for stamps, or Prison Legal News, one thing is most certainly certain. And that is that no matter what, or whatever it is that they're trying to prevent, it is still going to find its way behind the fence. It just is. You know, I wanted to address this story to bring attention to this story, but also to give a shout out to this Prison Legal News publication. You know, this is not a sponsored video. I've got a lot of respect for this publication because it was started by two prisoners in a maximum security prison with $300. I mean, that right there is just an amazing accomplishment. And then to think just how big this publication has gotten since then, and also for all of the proactive work they try to do in an effort to educate and also give a voice to the prison population. It is a very helpful publication for people who are serving time, and I myself personally have read many a copy of this publication when I got to a prison that actually allowed this publication. And if you've never heard of Prison Legal News, you should definitely check them out. You want to talk about some crazy prison stories? They most certainly have a few in each and every issue. And you know, I'll go ahead and wrap this up saying, you know, it is a damn shame that a publication specifically tailored and created for people who are serving time is actually being banned in an entire state, in every single prison in that state, where if otherwise allowed could potentially be like a positive resource for those individuals who are serving time in that state. You know, I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say about this story. I hope you found it interesting. Maybe you'll even go check out Prison Legal News. Comment down below and let me know. Until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted, nor ever find yourself locked up in the state of Florida. Hey Siri, take another note for me.
What do you want it to say?
Double remind me to never get locked up down in Florida.
Okay, I created a note. W, remind me to never get locked up down in Florida.
Double, not W. Double. And make the most of every day. Peace!
Thank you.